Breaking news tonight. Congressional Republicans on the supercommittee have offered a new plan with up to $800 billion in new revenues. But as usual, the deal has been dismissed by Democrats. Maybe not all the Democrats. Anyway, my question tonight is, has partisan gridlock already doomed the supercommittee to failure? I'm not sure it has. We're joined by two distinguished senators. We have Mark Udall, Democrat from Colorado, and Kelly Ayotte, Republican from New Hampshire. Senator Ayotte, I want to ask you about this plan. I don't know if you're up to speed. The Washington Post put this thing out not too long ago. It's got between $600 and $800 billion of net new revenues, largely from tax reform. Can you tell us anything about it?
Well, what I can tell you is that I think that it shows that Republicans are serious about coming to an agreement. The fact that the members of the supercommittee put revenue on the table, that we think that tax reform is a way forward here on a bipartisan basis to eliminate the lobbyist loopholes, lower rates, make us more competitive, get revenue through economic growth. I think that it just shows that we're very serious. And this committee cannot fail, because what kind of signal will it send to the markets if we fail?
Senator Udall, it's about as Senator Ayotte described it, from what I can gather between the lines, possibly a 28% marginal tax rate in return for giving up a lot of the deductions, the personal income deductions, lower cost of living adjustments, for example, lots of fees, some Medicare premiums, and, of course, there are spending cuts. It comes to a $3 trillion package. Is that something you could sign into? It's got tax reform, it's got spending cuts, and it's got a lot of revenues.
Yes, Senator Ayotte put it properly and correctly, Larry. We can't afford to fail when we speak of the supercommittee. And in fact, there's enormous opportunity when the supercommittee succeeds, because we'll send a message to the markets that we're serious about getting a handle on the unsafe condition our fiscal house is in. And you're right, it has to be a combination of spending cuts. We've got to shore up Medicare and Medicaid, and I think set Social Security aside in the lockbox, and we need tax reform. So this is some promising news. I'm a SimpsonBowles advocate, and if you remember, that bipartisan committee basically said you got to have $3 in spending cuts to $1 in revenue enhancements, and that sounds like the formula meets that standard that you just laid out.
Well, actually, this is right out of the Simpson-Bowles playbook. I think you're dead right. And Senator Ayotte, let me just ask you, though, on the other side, you know, we read in the papers all the time with the occupiers in Wall Street and Detroit and Oakland and all the violence they're brewing. We see about the 1% versus the 99%. The president is out on the campaign trail. That's what it is, a campaign trail, to tax millionaires and billionaires. So is that going to be the Democratic mantra, or do you think you can do business with more reasonable Democrats like Mr. Udall?
Well, I certainly hope it's not. I appreciate what Senator Udall has said, because we can't let this committee fail over these, political gotcha, the same old talking points. We know there's a way forward for tax reform, and that is simplifying the code and lowering rates, making it more competitive. What are we doing to try to gain revenue? We need to do it in a way that's going to help our economy, not in the way that has been proposed and that's divisive.
I mean, Senator Udall, there's a lot of growth dividends in this bill, in this proposal, and there was in Simpson-Bowles, for that matter. Those dividends were put to deficit reduction and ultimately trying to stabilize the debt to GDP ratio. But I want to ask you honestly, many of your colleagues, Senator Schumer's been out there pounding this, and of course the president, they want higher tax rates. They want the Bush rates raised. They want the millionaires' tax raised. They're talking about the 99% versus the 1%. Can this get done? You're coming out very moderate and sensible. Will your party follow, sir?
I'm reflecting Coloradans. I think I'm reflecting Americans. Senator Ayotte and I both come from mountain states, and when you climb a mountain, you have the opportunity to look out over the landscape and look at the bounty that our country provides. But you can also see this fiscal storm looming on the horizon. And we know, Larry, you can't cut your way to prosperity solely, but you can't tax your way to prosperity as well. And we've got to attack the rising costs of health care that are tied to Medicare and Medicaid. We can do that in a smart way, but this package has got to be all of a whole. So I'm really heartened. As I said earlier, the supercommittee cannot fail. And there are a group of 45 senators, Senator Ayotte's a member of that group, who are saying, we've got the back of the supercommittee, we're rooting you on, but it's clear we've got to succeed, and it has to be through a combination of revenue, spending cuts, and looking at Medicare and Medicaid, making some smart changes to the way they operate.
Senator Ayotte, Mitch McConnell, your leader, came out with a $4 trillion package. Now, the one we're talking about tonight, the breaking news from the Washington Post, says it's a $3 trillion package. Senator McConnell came out with $4 trillion. What's in that package? What's the $1 trillion difference? Can you tell us?
Well, you know, what I can say this is I understand it. If the supercommittee is looking at $3 trillion more, they're also counting the $900 billion that has already come through cuts. So we could get to a $4 trillion deal that way, and so get to the big deal that we know why Simpson-Bowles went for $4 trillion, Gang of Six, and the minimum we need to stabilize our debt to move forward here. And Senator Udall is absolutely right. There's a group of us. We're ready to work together and make sure that this supercommittee doesn't fail, because we cannot go the way of Europe. When we see what's happening in Europe right now, I think it's a warning to the United States of America.
Senator Udall, is there anything that's off the table for you that would block a deal? It could be a large tax hike. It could be an entitlement cut. Is there something on that side that you worry about?
Well, what I think should be on the table is setting aside Social Security receipts so we strengthen Social Security for the long term. You know, Social Security is solvent, but we've drained monies out of Social Security to the total of about $3 trillion. So I think a smart way forward would be to make some changes to Social Security that involve setting those monies aside. But no, everything ought to be discussed, Larry, and that's the way we come up with a proposal that'll get support. If you go big, you generate more support. I would tell you that I think Senator Ayotte agrees. When we get the package, there's going to be something in there that's going to make every one of us feel a little bit sick, because this is going to be tough. I was a businessman in my whole life, and when you had to make cuts, it hurt. But if we don't make them now, when are we going to make them? And the bond markets, as you well know, you're an expert when it comes to the bond markets, they're going to make the decision for us. The American way is to create our future, determine our future. We've got an opportunity here to do that, but we can't leave it on the table. We're running out of road, so we can't keep kicking that can down the road.
All right, I'll leave it there. Senator Mark Udall, Colorado. Senator Kelly Ayotte of New Hampshire, thanks.